Hi guys, welcome back for another video. Today I'm going to be telling you how somehow 6 months into the year I've managed to hit my Goodreads goal of reading 50 books. Honestly, don't quite know how this has happened, didn't realise I'd read that many books, but apparently I'm 27 books ahead of schedule. I should think so. So in this video I'm just going to be talking you through what I think I've done to be able to read so much and how I've managed to actually hit my Goodreads goal only halfway through the year. So I'll crack on with the tips, I guess. The first thing probably sounds really stupid, but I feel like it's really easy to forget to really enjoy reading. Sometimes when you set a Goodreads goal, or if you set any other kind of reading goal, I feel like it can really be this goal that you have to achieve, and actually it's quite easy to think, to forget to think that you actually enjoy reading, and that's why you set up a blog or you set up a booktube and like to talk about books online or read at all. And sometimes it's easy to just focus on that goal and forget to actually enjoy it, and I feel like sometimes you just need to shut off that side of your brain that's doing it for any other reason than just loving it, and just make sure you're picking up books that you really want to read and actually think you would take pleasure in reading. My second tip is to always have a book on you. I think this for me is when I get most of my reading done, because I've always got a book on me and I can read in those little ad hoc moments. For example, brushing my teeth for 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the evening. That is a great opportunity to read like 2 pages each time. I know that's only 4 pages in total, but it does still make a difference and enables you to fit reading into those little moments in your life. I think having a Kindle or having the Kindle app on your phone as well, or I think, is there like an iBooks one? There's a couple of different versions, Scribd as well, but having the ebook format available on your phone or on a Kindle device is much easier to bring about with you than a big chunky hardback. Like if you're reading something like Priory of the Orange Tree, that is beefy and you don't necessarily want to be bringing that around with you, so it's quite nice to have the option to be able to go digital. And that also means that, yeah, if you're stuck waiting for a doctor's appointment or you've gone for a job interview and you're waiting a little bit, that kind of thing, you can just pick up a book and read, which I feel like is always going to enable you to read just a couple more pages, which will get you more into the book and mean that you will eventually end up reading a lot more. I suppose off the back of that as well, my third tip would be to read whenever you have time. So make time for reading a bit more, I suppose. Like I always read before I go to bed because it just calms me, and I feel like it's a better time for me to be able to sit down and read because I'm focused on that and I don't have anything else to do. I like reading in the mornings as well, and I tend to wake up earlier than I need to before work so I can get some reading done. So it's about making time in your day and fitting it in and just reading whenever you can. Tip number 4 is to put your phone out of reach. This one I feel is the trickiest, but also my phone is the thing that stops me reading if anything's going to at all. I just gravitate towards it and I don't even know why, because actually at times I find being on social media can be quite stressful. A lot of the times I love contributing to a community, but there's also times when it does feel a bit more stressful, so it's not like I'm getting a benefit from it all the time, and I don't need to have my phone on me all the time and be on my phone, and yet I do it anyway. So that is something that I think I need to get better at as well, but I've taken to on Sundays either switching my phone off or just completely discarding it for the whole day, so I know that Sundays is actually definitely my day off. I work in social media as well, so I really don't get a break from it, so I definitely think if you're able to, pop your phone somewhere else, don't look at it, don't check it, and just sit and read, because honestly, even when I finish a chapter, I'm like, well, I better check Instagram now I've finished a chapter, and then I end up being on my phone longer than I was actually just reading that chapter. What are we on? Tip number 5, I think? Tip number 5 would be to not be afraid to DNF books. I have seen very many different opinions on this, but my personal thoughts is don't worry about DNFing a book if it's not something that you're interested in reading, and if it's something you've started and you've suddenly realised you don't like even though you thought you would, don't be afraid to DNF it. No one's going to judge you for doing that as long as you've got a legit reason why you're DNFing it. I think pushing on with a book you're not enjoying is only going to cause a reading slump and is going to make you question why you're reading it at all and get annoyed with yourself, because at the end of the day, as I said at the start of this video, we read because we enjoy reading, not for any other reason. So if you're not enjoying that book, obviously, I don't mean this if you're like studying or if you have to read that book for whatever particular reason, but if you're not enjoying a book, just put it down. There's no point in forcing yourself to go through it, and then you can pick up something you actually really enjoy and have a way better time with it. Number 6, I think. For me, number 6 would be don't set really strict TBRs. I personally don't like setting TBRs, which is ironic because this month I have set a TBR, but that's because I'm doing a readathon. But I find them quite restrictive. I'm a massive mood reader, so I suppose it's about knowing what kind of a reader you are. I'm a mood reader, I don't like setting TBRs, I find it too restrictive and it doesn't really enable me to read the books I really want to read. and I think for me it doesn't really work for the way I like to read books. You might be someone that does prefer to set a TBR. I think generally going into a month, I don't look at all the books I want to read in that month, but what I do in my head is kind of think, oh, well, when I finish this book I'd probably quite like to move on to this one, because I find the idea of looking at my shelves completely blank quite daunting. But I generally tend to have a rough idea about the kind of book I'd like to read next, but it's never set in stone. I don't make TBR videos, I just make wrap-ups. So maybe one day I'll just set myself a monthly TBR and see how I go with it and do a video of that experience, but experience, like it's this grand thing. For me, it just doesn't really help me with my reading, and I find it more restrictive because I feel like I'm almost forcing myself to read the books on the TBR, even though obviously you can chop and change, but then what was the point of making the TBR at all? Number 7 is read in an environment you are comfortable in. For me, that is either this chair or this bed. I think when you are comfortable in the space you're reading in, that makes you happy to stay there for as long as possible and just sit and read as much as you should like. I really like sitting outside on our sun loungers or our swinging bench when it's really sunny outside. That is my premium spot for reading. That is when I'll turn my phone off, leave it inside, and go and sit outside and literally read all day. That is how I finish books in one day, or multiple books in a day, because for me that environment is so comfortable and nice and pleasant that it's a great place for me to sit and read. I think as well, if you're sitting in an environment that you know you have to-dos around that environment, like for example if you're in your bedroom and you know you really need to clean your bedroom, your brain is not going to be fully engaged in the reading, so you're probably not going to focus in the same way. So try and work at a space that would be comfortable and make you feel happy and calm and enjoy going into a completely different world in your book, somewhere you can escape. Number 8 is one I've touched on already, but that is finding time to read every day. As I said, I read before I go to bed, and for me that really helps because it's a routine that I enjoy and look forward to. But I think squidging some time into your day to read every day is a really good idea. Maybe that's knowing that you want to read X amount of pages a day, or knowing you want to read for 30 minutes a day, for example. I try and read 50 pages a day if I can as a minimum, because that's how I keep up with the TBR that I have growing, like the shelf TBR, and just generally get more read. I know it's not a competition or a challenge, but I've got so many books I want to read that I just want to get through them all so I can one day have an absolutely clear shelf of books that I just haven't, you know, I've read them all. I want to one day do that. I don't know if that's at all feasible, but then I can actually go into a bookshop and pick a book I want to read because it's the next book I want to read. Being a book blogger and vlogger, I don't think that's ever going to happen because I'm constantly thrown with recommendations. But yes, I don't even know what this point was. Find time to read and make sure you kind of set yourself some kind of plan in your head as to, oh, okay, I'd like to read for 20 minutes before I start work, maybe. It does help. It really helps because it gets you into the routine of it. And the more you do it, I think the more you get stuck into your books and read more. I think as well, what I would add on to the end of all of these tips, because I think that's all of my tips now, is generally just try and allow yourself the time to get stuck into books, because I find if I just sit down for 10 minutes at a time and read a book, I don't fully immerse myself into it, and those are probably the books I'm more likely to DNF. So I know I've said like find time, like when you're brushing your teeth and things, but I think it's also important to find like a good hour or so where you can sit down and really get into a book, because if it's something like a heavy fantasy, you're not going to get into it with just reading a couple of pages. You don't absorb it in the same way. I would definitely say as well that lockdown has helped because I haven't been going out. Obviously, I've been here. As soon as I finish work, I've been at home and right before I start, so I'm able to read rather than driving back and forth. And I would normally listen to audiobooks on my commute, but it does make a difference. I can physically sit down and read. I'm not really planning anything at the weekends. I don't have any commitments socially in the same way anymore because everything's now digital, so I can get stuff done in a different way, which means I've got a lot more time available to read rather than socialising. I very much miss socialising, but I'm not mad that I've been able to read quite a bit. And again, everyone reads at a different pace, so you do what's right for you with it. These are just some advisory tips that I personally like to go by to read a bit more. Yeah, I can't believe I've managed to somehow actually read 50 books. That seems like a hell of a lot. I think last year in total I read 60, 62 or something. So to have read nearly that much already when we're halfway through the year, I mean, lockdown definitely helps, doesn't it? Like, that's the difference this year. If I was going out and socialising, I wouldn't be having whole days where I was just sat at home reading. Also, I'm getting a lot better at DNFing books, or knowing what kind of books I definitely want to read or don't want to read. For example, I'm not a massive fan of contemporary, so I have to be in just the right mood, and I'm not making myself read contemporary when I don't fancy one, which I would do in the past. So I think it's understanding your own reading tastes and go from there. Yeah, that's my video about how to read more and how I managed to hit my Goodreads goal in 6 months, which is insane. I really need to start raising it apparently, although now there's no pressure, so there shouldn't be pressure with reading anyway. You guys know what I mean. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what I'm talking about, you can give this video a thumbs up, you can comment down below, or you can subscribe to see more. Keep smiling and stay positive.